Hello and welcome to the True Solar Library. My name is John, and today we're going to be reviewing how to properly calculate the savings a solar system can offer against the cost of doing nothing, and also how those savings are slightly illustrated differently if you go solar as a cash investor versus a finance investor. The cost of doing nothing. This is a very common metric used in the industry to compare the cost of going solar versus staying with your utility. If you do nothing, if you stay with the utility, here's the cost of doing so. It's kind of another way of looking at that. The cost of doing nothing, in addition to holding it side by side, does a great job of illustrating what the rising cost of power really does for you and how much that can really hurt you over time. So right now, if this year's cost of power is $1,800, $150 per month, 25 years down the line, if you were to sum up all of the payments made, that means you paid over $65,000 to the utility company, which is astronomical. You should see the reactions that these customers give us when they see these figures and the way that it's laid out, because again, it's just something that you typically don't think twice about. But now that you're considering an alternative, $65,000 is a lot of money. So let's try to get you away from that if we can, right? So I can say here, really can't talk about cost of the system because no two roofs are the same, no two homes are the same. Everybody's got different usage and needs and everything. So there's a million factors that go into pricing a system, but I can say with total confidence that if your average cost of power right now is $150 a month, the gross system cost, even before incentives and everything, will be far less than $65,000, which is the cost of doing nothing. So you can see how already it doesn't matter if you go solar as a cash investor versus a finance investor. You're going to be paying a lot less over the life of the system compared to that cost of doing nothing. So moving into now the differences versus cash versus finance and which finance option is best for you, let's start with financing, because that's what about 3/4 of all customers end up going with as a financing option. It's very appealing because A, there's no money down required. The lending options that we currently have here at True Solar have no sort of prepayment penalty. They have no down payment requirements. I can't think of a lending option I've used in my many years in solar that did require a down payment. So it's very appealing in that sense, number one. Number two, when you go solar under a finance option, the thought process is all about cash flow. What were you paying with utility? What are you paying on your solar payment? So in that respect, you can think of going solar under a finance option as a bill swap. We're taking away your utility payment, giving you a monthly payment to start to pay off the solar. How does that compare? That's going to fall into one of three categories. It's going to be a little bit less than what you're currently paying right out the gate, which is awesome. It's going to be about the same as what you're currently paying. It might even be a little bit more than what you're currently paying. So the first bucket, if it's cheaper, that makes a lot of sense. If you have to choose one over the other, you might as well choose the cheaper one. Doesn't need a whole lot of explaining there. Now, if the bill swap changes things to where it's about the same as what you're currently paying, or maybe it's even a few bucks more than what you're currently paying, a very fair question is why should I pull the trigger on solar if it's not going to show me much difference, or it might even put me in the red, so to speak? That's a very fair question, but think about it over the longer term. There's no situation where you don't pay a utility bill. Like, there is no light at the end of the tunnel, number one. Number two, there is a light at the end of the tunnel when you do finance a solar project. Also, that's a fixed monthly payment. Let's just say, using that $150 a month example I used earlier, let's say the monthly payment's $170, so $20 a month more than what you're currently paying out the gate in that first year. The next year, it may only be $10 a month different. The year after that, or the year after that, it might be about even. And then all of a sudden, you're swimming in the savings while your neighbors are all griping about how they wish they went solar years ago and griping about the rising cost of power, and you're going to be sitting pretty. So you can see how it's very similar to owning versus renting a home. In many situations, the monthly mortgage payment is more than what you could probably find with a nice apartment or a rental property. But it makes sense to own a home for reasons similar to what I just explained as owning versus renting your power. So that's kind of the concept of the bill swap. Now, kind of diving into which financing option is right for you, because there's many to choose from. They can sort of broadly be categorized into two large buckets. On the first bucket, much more common, you've got what's known as a prepaid interest option, also known as a high dealer fee option. The other bucket is what we would probably consider it to be the market rate option. Let's first elaborate on the more common of the two, being the prepaid interest high dealer fee option. You may finance a considerable amount more than what would have been the cash price, but you'll notice that the interest rate is well below what the market is at right now, as opposed to whatever your local credit union might be able to get you or what have you. That would also yield a lower monthly payment. So if your main objective with this bill swap concept is just to get as low of a monthly payment as possible, that might be the option for you. Now, the quote unquote catch to that is although no real financing option in the world of solar has any sort of prepayment penalty, if you finance a lot of your interest up front, it loses a lot of the appeal to pay it off early. The other bucket being what we call the market rate financing option. There's no prepaying your interest. Here at True Solar anyway, the finance price under that option is the same as the cash price. So depending on the dealer or the installer, maybe they add some cost to financing option for whatever reason, but here it's all the exact same. So you're not prepaying anything, so to speak. So in that situation, you've got a higher interest rate because it's just whatever the market is at. Number one. Number two, that also kind of yields to a few bucks higher each month, but huge advantage to pay it off early. Now let's slide over and discuss what it looks like as a cash investor. As far as where this goes in your investment portfolio, this has the returns very comparable to your high risk, high reward, but it would be categorized in your low risk, low reward because of the very low risk that it kind of imposes on your overall portfolio. So you're really getting the best of both worlds when you go solar. And even if you don't have a phenomenally perfect roof, and maybe it's instead of a 10% return on investment, it's 7 or 8 or 9%, and it's a 12-year break even or whatever it may be, it's still a low risk, moderate return investment option at that point. So even with a not perfect roof, it's still pound for pound a phenomenal investment. So I hope that this has been very informative to you as a listener. Hopefully you have a better understanding of which option is going to be better for you, cash versus finance, and which financing option if it's that way. If you have any other questions on this topic, please reach out to me directly. My contact information is right here in this post, or just reach out to True Solar directly. Anybody is perfectly well equipped to answer questions on this topic. Thank you again for tuning into this episode of the True Solar Library. I'm out. Thank you.